Yesterday, we looked at the documents we shall need to file our taxes for the tax year 2025, but for the tax season of 2026. Now, today let's look at the business information you will need, or the documents you will need to file your taxes for business. Okay, let's look at the legal name of the business. The legal name or the DBA. If you know you're doing business as another person's name or a franchisee's name, we need to know this information. We shall also need to have the employer identification number, the EIN. For small businesses, we may need to have the social security number or the ITIN of the owner. Then we shall also look at the business address. Where is this business located? We shall need to know the start date of the business. When you give us the business documents, this applies for you who has never filed taxes with us. It means we don't have a permanent file for you. But if you've done taxes with us, we have your information in the permanent file on our system. So, we want to know the type of the entity. Schedule C helps us so much here. We want to know, is it a partnership? Is it an S Corp, a C Corp? What is it? We need to know the ownership percentage, the details, who owns what percentage. So we also need to know the prior tax returns. For example, for the 2024 tax return, we need to see that tax return to know whether you have carryovers, whether you have refunds, whether there is something that has changed significantly that we should take into consideration. For example, if there are acquisitions and disposals of assets. So we shall also look at your income information or income records. At this point, you're interested in your financials, the profit and loss statement, the balance sheet, and don't forget to provide us the gross receipts. If you have a lot of independent contractors, or if you've issued a lot of 1099s NEC, we would like to have this information at this point. We also need to know the sales reports, if any, and the interest there is to see the corresponding sales tax if you've always been filing your sales tax. We can also look at any other income you have. For example, refunds or prizes you have, rewards you have, grants. Let's get all this information to help us to file your business return. Another item we are going to look at here is the expense documentation. We need to know the expenses you've incurred in the course of the year or in the cost of business. For example, the cost of goods sold for those who are dealing in general merchandise where we have purchasing and selling items. We need to know your information around cost of goods sold, and we have a very huge interest in the purchases in case of flight costs. Maybe you purchased from a different place or a different region and you had to incur shipping and everything. So we need to know information about your inventory. It's very pertinent here. Opening inventory and closing inventory. We shall look at other costs you've incurred in the business, like advertising, professional services, like maybe legal, insurance, office expenses. We shall look at your rent. We shall look at utilities. We shall look at things like meals, traveling, all that. We shall look at all that information when we are making your tax return. Something I should also mention here, we shall look at your bad debtors. Who are these people that you've tried to recover money from and they have not paid you? Remember, we have also conditions around bad debts. Not everybody is a bad debt. As much as they have taken longer to pay, but have we met the criteria? Was it even a trade receivable? So we need to look at all that. So item number maybe number 4, we need to look at your payroll records or contractor records. This is very important because this is where you have some deductions too. We need to look at if you have employees, do you have W2s or W3s? We need to see the payroll tax filings that you've been doing across. We need to look at the summaries in terms of health insurance, or if you offer any. Some of you give HRA, some of you give reimbursements or insurance, you have dental, everything. So you are looking at the payroll in its totality and you are looking at those expenses because you have a deduction right there. We shall look at the independent contractors, and this is something I should always tell you. You normally have a lot of independent contractors for so long that really qualify to be employees. At this point, I would advise you make them an employee. Make, like, depending, if you're gonna have someone independent contractor for so long and literally you literally dictate whatever they do, and you know, instead of issuing the 1099 NEC, how about you make this person an employee and negotiate around there? You get more benefits anyway. So when you issue out the 1099s, NEC, of course, we shall look at W9s at some point X. Then we want to look at your assets, acquisitions, and disposals. We want to look at the depreciation schedule, how your assets have been moving. I've seen so many, clients have cars coming in, cars leaving. Actually, it's one of those assets that keep changing on the schedule. So we want to look at that, the fixed assets you have. We want to look at the purchase, the debt, and the cost. We want to look at the additions or disposals. We want to look at the prior year depreciation, the section 179 deductions. Now it makes a lot of sense at this point. We want to see, do you have even bonus depreciation? So all this will help us to give you a better return, because we are trying to get more information as much as we can. We look at your business and financing. Do you have loans? Do you have the bank statements? Have you been doing reconciliation on time? Do you have any agreements that are going on that will affect your business? Maybe you're negotiating something and you're putting in maybe your asset, or you through your bank, or you're obtaining a loan, or the bank is facilitating something on your behalf. We want to look at the interest expense summaries. What are these loans, and what is the interest expense that is corresponding, and how have you been paying this? We shall look at any line of credit statements. If you have credit cards, would like to look at all those, and would like to have reconciliation done throughout the year. So this is one of the things we will ask you. We would like to look at your tax compliance, and this is where the issue of tax estimates come in. Have you been doing any tax estimates? Or if so, all right, how much and how many quarters have you paid for? Do you have any state tax filings that are pending, or local tax filings? Do you have any state tax liability, any federal? Do you have any obligations or prior year areas that you've not paid? We shall need all this information anyway. Are you a franchise? Because you may have dealt with your end, but you are a franchise, and it is a franchise as a whole to deal with some things. Do you have a business license? Anyway, how about renewal fees? If you're new to us, we're going to ask you all this information. The purpose is to make sure we have all the information and we prepare this return in the most accurate way possible. So that's one of the reasons we are going to have this information. Of course, you cannot go unnoticed. There's what we call the equity section. We want your information. We want to know your contribution. How much have you contributed? Anyway, the distribution. How much have you taken out of the business? So we are looking at the personal expenses you've made using business income. Anyway, you are the owner, but we still want to make sure you're separate legal entity. We separate you from your business by accounting for how much you've put in and how much you've used. So we are interested in this information, especially for partnerships. The S-Corp, this is a very pertinent area. We shall also look at any dividends. Have you paid any dividends? We are looking at the basis of payment. We are also looking at the guaranteed payments, because sometimes there are payments that are guaranteed. It only happens if something is happening, or they are not happening at all. So a lot is to consider here. We shall also look at special items. For example, home office. Someone does business from home, so we have to look at the square meters that are used at home. We have to look at the utilities that we have to look at the proportion of the utility that is used for this particular business. Of course, we shall do the reconciliation review. We know you've done all these reconciliations at the end of that day, but we are going to go ahead and do the review. This review helps us to compare what you've done and what we come up with. So this is the information you need. I remain CPA Jovia, Jovima Digital Consultants. Thank you.